Battlefield is the start of the final season of the original run of Doctor Who, and the extremely low viewing figures explain why it was cancelled. It's a shame really, as there's more than enough action and excitement in this story to appeal to casual viewers, although the story itself is rather uneven and maybe not as coherent as it could be. Like Remembrance of the Daleks by the same writer, this also has two alien forces coming to Earth to battle over a powerful weapon. This time they are knights from another dimension, although it seems to be more of a parallel universe, where spaceships and magic coexist. On one side is Anselin, possibly the last survivor of King Arthur's knights, it's not really clear, and on the other side is Morgaine, Mordred, and an entire army, plus a massive demon, so it's really not a fair fight. Luckily UNIT are back, led by Brigadier Bambera. They are a much more multicultural organisation than they were in the 1970s, which makes sense as they are the United Nations, and they finally have representatives from all over the world, not just the UK. As you would expect from a UNIT story, there were lots of big action scenes, with car chases, sword fights and battles. It brings a sense of scale to the show that you don't usually get, and it's gloriously over the top, with soldiers flying through the air at the slightest opportunity. It proves UNIT can work in a modern context, and it paved the way for their return in the new series. Brigadier Lethbridge-Stewart also returns, for the final time in proper Doctor Who. He is arguably the main character of the story. It begins and ends with a look at his domestic life, and we meet his wife for the first time, although it is later established in the extended universe that Doris was his second wife, and it was his first wife who gave birth to Kate. This gives him a much better send-off than Mordred Undead, casting him as the old soldier going back for one last battle. And in the end, he single-handedly stops the destroyer and saves the world. The original plan was for him to die, which would have been sad, but a fitting ending for the character. But at least this way he gets to retire and spend a few decades living peacefully with his wife in a massive house, before dying and then coming back as a Cyberman. But let's not go there just yet. Like Silver Nemesis, this is also a sequel to an unmade story, but in this case it's from a future where the Doctor has become Merlin and battled Morgaine by Arthur's side. It seems there have been a few attempts to tell this story in the extended universe, but none of them have really stuck, so maybe we'll get to see Billy Piper becoming Merlin when the show finally returns. So the Doctor basically spends the entire story trying to figure out what his future self had planned, bluffing his way through his first encounter with Mordred, and relying on notes from his future self to tell him what to do. He has become a significantly darker character since last year. His new coat definitely suits him, and we see him using new psychic abilities that he has shown no hint of having before, which is another indication of them building up the mystery of the character. The guest cast are full of big personalities. Angela Bruce as Brigadier Bambera is a fun character, with her catchphrase of shame and general gung-ho attitude throwing herself into every fight. Her relationship with Anselin, played by Marcus Gilbert, is a definite highlight. They're from very different worlds, but they have the same kind of attitude to life, and they do make a really good couple. Ling Tai as Chu Young is really just there to give Ace someone to hang around with, although the scene where Morgaine mind controls Ace into shouting racial slurs at her is still genuinely shocking. On the villain side, Jean Marsh as Morgaine is a much more complex character than most bad guys, respecting the war memorial and curing the blind woman in the pub, while still callously murdering people at the slightest whim. She is excellent throughout, especially in her scenes with Nicholas Courtney, who she also acted with in the Daleks' Master Plan, and in the final scene where the Doctor talks her out of launching a nuclear missile, which should be completely unbelievable, but she makes it work. Her son Mordred, played by Christopher Boyne, is not nearly as strong, laughing like a maniac at the slightest opportunity, and generally being a complete waste of space. The Demon the Destroyer, played by Mary Canton, is a very impressive creation. It's possibly the most elaborate monster costume in the show to this point, and it still looks very effective by modern standards. The filming location is very atmospheric, full of castles and lakes. The spaceship set is less successful, looking very artificial, and the flying green snakes that attack the Doctor are pretty pathetic. There are some effective set pieces, with Ace nearly being drowned in the water tank, and then popping up in the lake, all very impressive, even if it did nearly kill her. The main problem with the story is that the whole background is left very vague. We're told everything happened just as it is in the Arthurian legends, but with significant differences that they never quite get round to explaining. So we never really learn anything about the dimension of the night to come from, and it's not clear just why Excalibur started broadcasting its distress signal after 1200 years, or what Morgaine actually intended to do with Excalibur once she got hold of it. I'm sure there are answers to these questions, but they never quite made it to screen, which all makes it a bit frustrating. The DVD has more than an hour of extra features. There's 18 minutes of studio footage, mainly of them rehearsing and recording scenes in the spaceship. From Kingdom to Queen has Jean Marsh looking back at her time in the show. We get to see some clips from the Crusades and the Dalek Master Plan. Plus she gives her memories of William Hartnell and explains why she took the part in Battlefield. And there's a making-of documentary split into 3 parts. Storm Over Rebellion has the writer, director and script editor, along with Sylvester McCoy, Sophie Aldred, Angela Bruce, Nicholas Courtney, Jean Marsh and Marcus Gilbert, all giving their memories of the production. We hear how Sophie Aldred shot the scene in the lake, and there's talk about the fight scenes, the destroyer, and the relationship between Antolin and Bambera. Past and Future King is more about the writing, the decision to bring back the Brigadier, and why they didn't kill him off, and making the new Brigadier a black woman because it was set in the future. Finally, Water Tank has Sophie Aldred, Sylvester McCoy, and the director talking about the moment when the water tank she was in cracked and she had to be pulled out sharpish. Plus we see some footage of it actually happening. There is also a special edition of the story, 95 minutes long, which has a few additional scenes added in and some new special effects. The editions are all worth seeing, with the Brigadier clashing with Ace, the Doctor and Ace talking about Clark's Law, and Ace explaining what Excalibur really is, which is the only explanation we ever get. Sadly, they haven't replaced the green flying snakes with CGI, so they still look terrible. But even so, it's probably a better version of the story than the original. Overall, it's a fun action romp, with great performances from Jean Marsh and Nicholas Courtney, but the story doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll give it 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my reviews, you may want to check out my Patreon, where I am currently reviewing 7th Doctor audio stories every week, as well as new episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Next week on this channel, Ghostlight. I don't think I understood it the first time around, but when it came out on DVD, I finally understood what it was about, so I appreciated it a lot more. So tune in next week to find out what I think of it this time, and I'll see you next time.